Welcome to Crossroads, a show by the Epoch Times, one of America's largest independent newspapers that brings you insights beyond the headlines. Now make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to our show. You get updates on when the next one is. Jury could soon be established on the Russiagate scandal. 2 more weeks is coming up soon, apparently. Attorney General Pam Bondi has allegedly directed her staff to move forward with the whole case. It's happening, apparently, and this could actually see criminal charges against individuals who were involved in running the now discredited scandal against President Donald Trump during the 2016 elections. Fox News said this on it. Attorney General Pam Bondi directed her staff Monday to act on the criminal referral from the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, because remember that she actually announced that publicly. She did say she was giving criminal referrals to the DOJ. It says related to the alleged conspiracy to the president to tie President Donald Trump to Russia. You might remember 2015, 2016, the Russiagate scandal where they said Trump is an asset of Putin. Turns out it was all a giant lie. And the question was, is that just confirmation bias, which was the former conclusion of the special counsel, or was it a coup d'etat, which is the way it's being framed now? It says the Justice Department is now opening a grand jury investigation into the matter, Fox News Digital has learned. And it's that Bondi, again, head of DOJ, personally ordered an unnamed federal prosecutor to initiate legal proceedings, and the prosecutor is expected to present department evidence to a grand jury, which would allow the department to secure a potential indictment, according to a letter from Bondi, reviewed by Fox News Digital, and a source familiar with the investigation. Anonymous sources, take it as you will, but remember, Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, she did say she was doing this, and so based on public statements, it would make sense. Now they note this, a DOJ spokesperson declined to comment on the report of an investigation, but said Bondi is taking the referral from Gabbard, quote, very seriously, which seems like a confirmation while avoiding a direct confirmation, frankly. And it's a spokesperson said Bondi believed there is clear cause for deep concern and a need for next steps. And what would the logical next step be? Well, the logical next step, if you believe that there is credible evidence of a crime, is that you order the formation of a grand jury to look into it. Again, anonymous sources, but I would say, my personal take, I think this is credible. The Trump administration was making public statements on this. This is not like behind closed doors. They seem to be on the warpath really suddenly. And the way it's looking is there's some kind of weird infighting going on between Republicans and Democrats, or between Trump and a lot of the former officials. They're calling people in to testify. I saw some of the different takes on why that is. In reality, they did not clearly state the reason for it, but you're going to have Clinton testifying, both Bill and Hillary Clinton. You're going to have a lot of the top officials of the Obama administration now being called in to testify. Things are going pretty quick. Again, there are rumors of the context of that. The heads of agencies are not directly saying why they're doing it, if you actually look into the actual public statements. On that front as well, just because someone's called in to testify doesn't mean they're going to do it. As we might remember, when Biden was president, many Trump appointees and in his administration were called to testify. They just refused, and some of them went to jail for it. It's not like you go for that long, but it is a crime if you refuse an order to appear before Congress. Now, where is all this going? It's huge, probably huge. It's really going to depend on how broad they cast the net, though. The Russiagate scandal, this is kind of like if you can call it like the meta conspiracy. The Russiagate scandal ties into a lot of other things. It tied into FISA abuse, Section 702. It tied into the meta narrative that was formed around January 6th, the meta narrative that was found around Trump appointing, even for example, dueling electors. It tied into the whole narratives of Trump saying the elections were being, funny. There was funny business going on against him. It ties into the attempts to remove him from office, the impeachments. It ties into the media, I'd say most of the major media. It ties into major political advisors, not even like government officials, but even people on the periphery. This ties into middle-level managers of agencies and bureaus. This is pretty major. The number of people who could potentially face criminal charges for this is daunting. Let's just say it's daunting. And the big question is going to be, well, was there a conspiracy? It's one thing to say that false information was being spread and disseminated and people were legitimately misled by it. The Trump-Russia dossier, that one, and then the intelligence analysis based on that, that could be the kind of meta-analysis. Some people looking at that may have come to conclusions and believed it was real because that's the way it was presented. The big question is going to be, were there communications? Did people know about it so that they knowingly, again, were aware that this information was false and they acted on it anyway? Did they coordinate with each other to try to coordinate media coverage, to get agencies to act as they did, to get members of Congress to try to impeach the President of the United States, to get spying orders? Again, they used Section 702, FISA, to do that, including unsealing the names of President Trump and the people around him during the campaign. The question is, again, was it knowingly or unknowingly? The key part of the evidence has now been presented. The one that, again, DNI Tulsi Gabbard is talking about, the information they're now releasing to the public. What does that actually show? The central piece with kind of what is making all of this so big right now is they're saying there was, in fact, an intelligence analysis that overruled a previous analysis saying the whole Trump-Russia claim was fake. They overruled that, brought it under a group of a very small number of people, overrode it, managed it from the top, and then came out with the conclusions they had that Trump was in fact colluding with Russia, which went against the previous analysis that they hid from the public. And again, that is going to be the real central piece of evidence they're going to be using for all of this. We'll see where it goes, right? Now, look, speaking of the news outlets, because they played a huge role in, if not collaborating with this, at the very least propagating it. It's possible that many of them are not entirely independent. I know, surprise. In fact, there's a concern that some of them may in fact be working as agents. Some of this discussion goes back to what's called Operation Mockingbird. And that was, of course, a intelligence program where they were getting journalists who were in fact like intelligence agents to become propagandists, paid off, trained, who knows what. There were reports on this that were public for many years. What the public has been told is the program has since been scrapped. But DNI Tulsi Gabbard, back in the headlines again, she's actually now raising the alarm over the ecosystem of government employees intentionally leaking claims to news outlets, suggesting some journalists are not entirely independent. Surprise, right? Some journalists are in fact doing this intentionally. They're working with key individuals within agencies, and they're kind of the mouthpiece for these types of hit pieces, something done allegedly intentionally. This is DNI Tulsi Gabbard speaking with Benny Johnson on The Benny Show. Watch this.
The media being used as a propaganda mechanism, we saw it flatly. I mean, I think it's the smoking gun, quite frankly, of the Obamagate narrative and the Russiagate narrative, that it was so baked in that the New York Times and Washington Post went and ran with it. Some would say that that's part of Operation Mockingbird. Some would say that that's part of what we learned in the Church Committee, that the intel agencies were using media outlets as their mouthpieces, and that those mouthpieces would parrot the official narrative. And I wanted to ask you, is this operation still going on? Are you aware of the intel agencies working directly with media outlets in order to push prescribed narratives that may or may not be true?
It's something that we've already had to deal with, Benny, within this administration, where there are people within the intelligence community who believe that their will is more important than the will of the American people, and will weaponize intelligence by leaking it to their friends within the mainstream media with the intent of undermining President Trump's agenda. It is not one that he hasn't already talked about in every rally and town hall that he did throughout the campaign. I don't even know how many there were, but President Trump is enacting the very thing he promised the American people he would do in this election. So people in the intelligence community, they may agree, they may disagree. That's not the point here. As intelligence professionals, as people who work in the national security space, in the intelligence community, they are required to fulfill their mandate to their oath to the Constitution of the United States and to the President of the United States, who is duly elected by the American people. Those who leak intelligence to their friends in the mainstream media with the intent of undermining the president who was elected by the American people, none of these intelligence professionals were. They are subverting the will of the people and therefore undermining the Constitution.
Well, just another reason why independent journalism is so important. Hint, hint, wink, wink. The joys of having no strings to hold you down, right? Now, look, in other news, though, Elon Musk, who appeared to have a falling out with President Donald Trump, they looked like they weren't going to be friends anymore. He then went out to launch his own political party, says, I'm going to start my own party. He's now donated to a Trump super PAC, suggesting that maybe things are changing. I don't know. I'll be talking more about this after a quick break.
All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment. You are, of course, watching Crossroads with Joshua Philipp. I'm just here to share a message about American Hartford Gold, my own personal gold and silver bullion dealer. Now, obviously, the recent tariffs have made the markets super turbulent and volatile. With every new piece of tariff news, the markets seem to either crash up or crash down. And of course, it's worth mentioning that these conditions don't only affect Wall Street. They affect all of us through our investments and our retirement accounts. That's why I'd like to introduce you to a company that I trust and I myself use to secure my own savings, American Hartford Gold. They specialize in helping Americans move our assets into something tangible, into something you can actually hold, which is physical gold and physical silver, two precious metals that act as a hedge against all those decisions being made in Washington, D.C. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and they make the whole buying process super simple. Your metals can be shipped directly to your door, or you can transfer your current retirement account to a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And the best part is that right now, American Hartford Gold is offering an exclusive offer. When you call them today and you mention the name Joshua, you could receive up to $15,000 in free silver with your initial investment. Take advantage of their special offer. You can either just call them at 877-260-2764 or text Joshua to 65532. All their information will also be down in the description box below. And now, back to Crossroads.
Welcome back. If you're enjoying the show, support us by hitting the like button, leave a comment, and be sure to subscribe to our channel. It really does help us get the show out to more people, and you get updates on when the next episode is. Now, look, on another topic, Elon Musk, well, it looked like he had a falling out with President Donald Trump. They were like best friends for a little bit, you know, walking around together, golfing together. Trump met his kids, and then didn't look like they were going to be friends anymore. Elon Musk went and established a brand new political party, said, that's it, I'm starting my own party, and he created the Freedom Party to create freedom. But now Elon Musk is showing signs that he may actually be kind of still supporting Republicans leading into the midterms. The Hill said this, tech billionaire Elon Musk donated $5 million to the main super PAC affiliated with President Trump in late June, despite an ongoing public feud. This is according to recent campaign finance filings. Important note on this was June. That was a bit ago. Maybe things have since changed. We don't really know. On the surface, what Elon Musk is suggesting he's really unhappy about, he didn't like the reconciliation bill. He seems to believe that government spending is the real problem. He wants to reduce government spending. The reconciliation bill created massive spending. On the Trump side, they argue that massive spending is necessary in order to bring back American manufacturing and to deport basically every single illegal alien. A lot of the money from that actually goes to deportations. They're saying it's necessary to get America back on track. Elon Musk is saying you can't get America back on track if you're overspending, if you're spending beyond your means. It shows here, though, that Elon Musk gave the sum to MAGA Inc. This is on June 27th, the same day he also donated $5 million to each of the Senate Leadership Fund and the Congressional Leadership Fund, the main super PACs dedicated to boosting Senate and House Republicans. And it's after spending at least $250 million to boost Trump's 2024 White House campaign. Musk joined the administration as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency. Again, he's kind of like the MAGA George Soros, right? We're living under the battle of the billionaires. But it notes that following a controversial 4-month stint, the tech mogul announced his plans to step away in late May. And so the point is, this would have been after that, but before some of the big falling outs. What's the current state of Musk and his view on MAGA? We don't really know. He's kind of moved away from politics, with the exception of talking about the need for transparency and putting certain corrupt individuals behind bars. Now, look, we don't really know Musk's thinking, right? We don't really know what he's technically thinking about all this, but there has been a kind of a big change. I would say maybe space has something to do with it, and it turns out that space is back on the table as well. The head of NASA has announced an ambitious plan that we're going to go back to the moon and then build a nuclear reactor on the moon. That's right, a moon base. The Independent said this: the United States wants to put a nuclear reactor on the moon in the next 10 years, which is not as long as you might think. And they say this is according to a NASA directive obtained by the Independent. President Donald Trump's NASA chief, Sean Duffy, has expedited the timeline to build the reactor and wants it to have at least 100 kilowatts of power, enough to run about 80 homes, which is not that many, but it's enough for a small-scale operation. They want to have this ready to launch, it says, by 2030. The directive, first reported by Politico, mentions China and Russia's joint efforts to place a reactor on the moon by the mid-2030s, so we're going to do it first. It says the two U.S. adversaries first announced their plans in March of 2024, and they say this, quote, the first country to do so could potentially declare a keep-out zone, which would significantly inhibit the United States from establishing a planned Artemis presence, if not there first, Duffy warned in the directive. Meaning, we got a new moon race. First person to the moon owns it. Right? First person to the moon owns the Earth-Moon system. Who is going to own the moon? America wants to own the moon. And so if we get there first, we can prevent them from pushing us out of it. It notes that NASA is working with the Energy Department and the broader space industry to design a fission power system that would provide at least 40 kilowatts of power. The space agency has already mentioned the benefits of developing fission surface power on the moon and on Mars. Now, this might sound crazy, but the Chinese Communist Party is very, very aggressively trying to control the what people would call the Earth-Moon system, basically the space between the Earth and the moon. If they can control that area, they can then deny access. Because think about it. What does it mean to say, I own this territory? Currently, who owns the moon? Hopefully nobody. Nobody that we know of. Nobody that we know of owns the moon. But of course, if a country were to go there and build a base there, you could say they own that base. How do countries diplomatically decide who owns what and whether you can even own stuff on the moon? That is still to be determined. Presumably, we'd go by the same laws that govern the world as we currently know it. Maybe you would have bases established and then a buffer zone around that base to establish claimed territory. But what is now going to be happening is the United States is going to be challenging China and Russia over who controls territory on the moon. First person there wins. First person to claim it owns it. And America wants to make sure that we own the moon. Why is that also so important? Aside from the prospect that, of course, they could control what's called the Earth-Moon system, which means they could deny space access to us, the moon is regarded as a jump point for deep space travel. So if you want to, for example, have projects going to Mars, like Elon Musk very much wants to do, you would want to go to the moon, have a base on the moon, and then have basing operations to extend beyond that. The other big side is that the moon has a lot of helium-3. Helium-3 is one of the main ingredients you would need if we ever have breakthroughs on fusion nuclear energy. Fission, of course, is where you split atoms. Fusion is where you fuse them together. Fusion is viewed as the future of energy. It does not create a lot of radioactive materials that are like dangerous by any means. but it creates what people call a star in a jar. They're able to get to the first stage of actually having it work. The problem is no container can hold it. So every time they get it working, it basically destroys the containment vessels, and it's extremely expensive. China is very rapidly trying to build that. France is trying to build it. The United States a little bit is trying to build it. But the moon is believed to be extremely rich in materials that would allow for that. The other big thing is water on the moon. There is evidence of water on the moon. In fact, they found some of it. And if we work on hydrogen power, they could use water on the moon for hydrogen power and also have it as a basing operation for deep space travel. In other words, the moon is going to become very valuable and strategically important real estate very, very soon. And if we allow China to move there and claim it, unless we want to go to war with them and fight a space battle with them, imagine that. Unless we want to do that, then we're not going to be able to take it back from them. So it is going to be first come, first serve. But look, back to the topic of the upcoming midterm elections, right? Elon Musk is donating to Republicans yet again. It's not clear whether he still stands by that or if he's going to be backing. He has talked about backing politicians to, especially in swing states, to try to push out the Republicans. He wants to have more of a freedom-based, probably more libertarian type party. But however you look at it, the midterm elections, they're coming up very quick. The Trump administration, they're now working on election integrity. They're pushing for audits right now. They're pushing for voter ID, but they continue to face lawsuits that are trying to block the initiatives to what conservatives would say would be secure the elections. And Democrats are trying to say, well, no, you're trying to push out voters. Now, all this is still ongoing, but in Texas in particular, they just had a major victory. A court ruled that voter ID, could potentially go to the state. Fox News said this. They said Texas scored a victory on Monday when a federal appeals court upheld a state law requiring voters using mail-in ballots to include a state ID number or partial social security number. Meaning, if you request a mail-in ballot, you have to prove, this isn't even strong proof, just kind of prove that you're a real human being and an American citizen. And it's a 3-judge panel reversed a district court's decision saying unanimously that the law did not violate the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as some critics have claimed, because it is material to confirm voter eligibility as required under the state. Basically, Democrats say that voter ID is racist because some races are incapable of getting IDs. Yeah, they're also talking about requiring IDs to access the internet and look at things on the internet that are uncouth, let's say. So is that racist? No. Is it racist to require people to use ID to buy cigarettes? No. Alcohol? No. Drive? No. But it's racist if you want an ID to vote, because how dare you go after those minorities who can't get IDs, according to them. Now, many of them say it's ridiculous. What are you talking about? That's kind of offensive, in fact. And it seems that Texas is agreeing with that it is not, in fact, a violation of the Civil Rights Act. Judge James Howitt says began the unanimous opinion with a blunt statement, quote, "Mail-in ballots are not secure," citing V.C. v. Perry. Mail-in ballots are not secure. What a statement, right? So we'll see what happens. It's very likely the challenges are going to continue. It might go to the Supreme Court. It may not be in the interest of Democrats to bring it to the Supreme Court, though, because if they don't, it stays in Texas. If they bring this to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court makes a determination on voter ID for mail-in ballots, that would apply to the entire United States. It would be in their interest to take the loss in Texas, keep it there, not bring it any higher, because they're very much against voter ID on the Democrat side. On another topic, though, we now have several, and I should be clear, Democrat officials are against it. Democrat voters actually, according to polls, are more in favor of voter ID. It's not clear why the representatives are not aligning with their voters on wanting voter ID. You can guess. Now, on another topic, we now have several programs to try to improve the health of Americans. There's the MAHA movement, talking about getting chemicals out of the drinking water and chemicals out of the sky itself being sprayed on our heads which some say is a giant conspiracy theory. They're talking about getting stuff out of the vaccines, which some also say is a giant conspiracy theory. You'd be the judge. But there's also a movement to make Americans fit again. They want to make us muscular like pro wrestlers because they now have Triple H on that, the, again, pro wrestler. But there are also new findings suggesting that getting healthy could also require some major changes in the actual products we use. Go and figure, including one of the most common materials we use, plastic. CBS News said this. They say plastic pollution is a grave, growing, and under-recognized danger to health that is costing the world at least $1.5 trillion a year. A report published Monday in the Lancet Medical Journal said, go figure, when you just when you thought that everything was poisoning you, the air and the water and the food and the soil, well, it's also the thing that we use in just about everything, from what we keep our food in to the clothes we wear to items in our own homes, plastic, things that are now everywhere. And they say this, quote, plastics cause disease and death from infancy to old age. Wonderful. And it says they are responsible for health-related economic losses exceeding $1.5 trillion annually, according to a scientific report from Lancet. A cause of disease and death for our entire lives, infancy to old age. Why do we have this literally everywhere then? It says a recent umbrella review of epidemiological research on the health impacts of plastic chemicals showed, quote, consistent evidence for multiple health effects at all stages of human life for many plastic chemicals, meaning if you're alive, it's harming you. No matter how old you are or how young you are, it's harming you. It says it also found that infants and young children were especially at risk, the report said. They say, quote, these effects include impaired reproductive potential, perinatal effects, diminished cognitive function. It's making us less intelligent, apparently. Insulin resistance, like diabetes, hypertension, obesity in children, and type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, meaning it's impacting your heart, stroke, obesity, and cancer in adults. So it's making us fat, sick, it's harming our hearts, it's causing strokes, it's causing diabetes, it's affecting the brain, cognitive impairment, just about everything it seems. Plastic is a cause of many health problems we're now facing, which should raise concerns because we cover just about everything in plastic. We keep our food in it, we make cups out of it, we make our lunch boxes out of it, we use it in materials for clothing, we keep it in our blood, in microparticles, and it's just about everywhere now. So if it's causing seemingly most of the diseases we're now facing, that is of pretty serious concern. Maybe this will get addressed. We'll have to see on that. On another topic, though, we're likely going to start seeing more migrants in holding facilities, right? Something else big happening right now. Don't worry about the plastics. Worry about the alligators in the water, if you're getting deported, that is. Many of these individuals in these programs that actually bypass state governments. What is happening now, the Trump administration, they're working on building these alligator Alcatraz facilities basically everywhere. They don't have alligators everywhere. It's not clear whether they're going to import them or rely on the local wildlife. We could have bear Alcatraz or badger Alcatraz, or I don't know, like if they want to do it in New York, like fentanyl Alcatraz. They're going to be doing it everywhere. And what's interesting is because some states are not going to cooperate on this, they're doing it through the federal government, meaning they don't have a choice. It appears alligator Alcatraz is going to be the model for all of these facilities to some extent. CBS News said this. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says, quote, alligator Alcatraz will serve as a model for state-run migrant detention centers, and she told CBS News in an interview that she hopes to launch a handful of similar detention centers in multiple airports and jails across the country. And that's in the coming months, they said. Why is that important? Well, airports have runways, and what do you use runways for? Is you use runways for airplanes, and what do you use airplanes for? To load people up and send them back to where they came from, in this case. Why are jails important? Well, because they have beds and holding facilities. They could actually expand these, maybe create some temporary buildings, and use the alligator Alcatraz model, meaning basically a tent city, in order to work as very quickly made, relatively cheap holding facilities, cheaper than building a whole building at least. They say this: potential sites are already under consideration in Arizona, Nebraska, and Louisiana. And they say the locations we're looking at right now by airport runways, they say will help give us an efficiency that we've never had before. You're a one-stop shop, just like Alligator Alcatraz, right? Because Alligator Alcatraz, it was not fully constructed just for that. Basically what had happened was there were plans to build something in the Florida Everglades before. They already laid down the foundations. They already built an airport runway. And so all they had to do to build this holding facility designed for deportations was build the beds and get the airplanes. And if you build it, they will come. And they are doing that. Now, she said she appealed directly to state governors and state leaders nationwide to gauge their interests in contributing to the Trump administration's program to detain and deport more unauthorized migrants, meaning illegal immigrants. And interestingly, she said this, quote, most of them are interested. And she added that in states that support President Trump's mission of securing the southern border, quote, many of them have facilities that may be empty or underutilized. So all those empty facilities, those underutilized facilities, could soon not be empty and be heavily utilized. So we will see how that works. Remember the reconciliation budget, the whole bill that went through? They gave around $100 billion for deportations. That's a lot of money. That's like a military budget. It's like we're running a war in terms of the amount of money being spent. That's huge. Now also, part of the deportation efforts also involves international partners. They need countries to send these people to. Some illegal immigrants are being sent to safe third countries, meaning you can't go home, but you can't stay here, so we'll find somewhere else to send you to. Some places like that include Africa. Very nice this time of year, depending on where you go. It could also include, for example, Guantanamo Bay. Not very nice this year, as we've heard. Others are being sent to prison outside the United States. El Salvador is a big key part of that. And they're also talking about building more facilities in El Salvador to provide housing to all the criminal illegal aliens. And now, well, it's possible El Salvador could do this for a very long time because, President Bukele there, he's the one championing that whole movement, and he's now creating a move, let's say, to stay in power forever. Barron's said this: El Salvador's president on Sunday defended a constitutional reform granting him the right to seek indefinite re-election. President for life, if he gets elected. Remember, they're not getting rid of elections. They're not getting rid of that. They're just getting rid of term limits. Something Trump has also talked about doing, although he says he's probably not going to do it and then jokes that he might do it. So I don't know where he's going with that. But in El Salvador, they're doing this with Bukele. He said he'd slammed critics who say it represents growing authoritarianism in the Central American nation. They said this, quote, 90% of developed countries allow the indefinite re-election of their head of government. I didn't know that. Wow, 90% of democracies let you stay in power forever. And no one bats an eye, they said. But when a small, poor country like El Salvador tries to do the same, suddenly it's the end of democracy, Bukele wrote in English on X, saying, look, you guys all do it. The only reason you have a problem with me doing it is because you don't like me. And it's El Salvador's Congress dominated by Bukele's New Ideas Party. Brand new ideas like housing like MS-13 members in their fine prisons. They said it passed the reform on Thursday. It notes as well it also extends presidential terms from 5 to 6 years. Not that long. but again, a lot longer. Meaning, you know, if you're not going to have term limits, why have so many elections? You know, just give it another year, 6 years, right? What difference does it make? Now, look, also speaking of programs to help bring an end to mass illegal immigration, though a lot of other stuff is happening. Trump, his administration, they're working on a new program aimed at preventing people from visiting the United States and then deciding they just never want to leave, right? They come here, you know what? I kind of like it here. Maybe I'll just stay forever. Now, here's more on what's happening right now from NTD Evening News. Watch.
International travelers may need to post a bond of up to $15,000 to enter the U.S. Now, that money will be returned to the traveler if they don't overstay their visa. The rule won't apply to every country, and those countries affected will be announced in about 2 weeks. That's also when this year-long pilot program will begin. The State Department says that the rule will apply to those countries with high rates of people overstaying their visas, countries that have deficient screening and vetting processes, according to U.S. authorities, and countries that don't require proof of residency to obtain citizenship. The bonds could be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, and this is the first time visa bonds will be implemented in the U.S. The first Trump administration floated the idea of launching a similar program back in 2020, but it wasn't implemented due to travel disruptions during the COVID pandemic. Now, keep in mind, this comes as federal law enforcement is stepping up arrests of illegal immigrants, not just those who came in illegally, but also those who came in legally and then overstayed. ICE agents, for instance, arrested a police officer in Maine last month because they say he overstayed his visa and then went to purchase a firearm. Now, their chief of police says that he was there legally and after immigrating to the U.S. from Jamaica in 2023, and so they're investigating. Now, this comes as the Trump administration is considering changes to the H-1B visa, which allows foreign workers to be employed. They're concerned about U.S. tech companies allegedly abusing the system, laying off American workers to hire foreigners to do the same job but pay them much less, which isn't technically illegal, but it doesn't fall in line with the America and Americans First agenda. We also saw that back in June, the Trump administration outright banned citizens from 12 countries from entering the U.S. That's to prevent foreign terrorists, gang members, and other security threats from coming from those countries. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Now, that could be big. One of the key points with this is that, well, not everybody could afford a $5,000 or $15,000 bond if you want to come visit the United States. And so, look, at least in my take, what this could mean is that only the wealthy from countries deemed dangerous of people coming here and just deciding to stay forever, only the wealthy would be able to comfortably visit the United States. This means, of course, they'll probably not allow people to just mass visit the U.S. if they're coming from countries where people very commonly violate our immigration laws. I don't know who this is going to be. Mexico is probably the biggest example of that, where you have a woman who's 9 months pregnant, comes and visits the United States from Mexico, goes to the emergency room, gives birth, her kid's an American citizen, she doesn't pay the bills, she goes back to Mexico, and now she has a baby who's an American citizen. Free health care on the backs of the American people, and she gets a long-term anchor in the country. In addition to that, very common practice, and they use oftentimes the legal immigration system to do that. Will they ban that? I don't know. The problem we have with Mexico also is because they're one of our major trading partners. So, creating it so they have to pay a bond every time they come into the country would make it hard with that. Unless, of course, the big trucking companies wanted to maybe facilitate that. Remember, it's not like they have to give the money away and never get it back. They get it back as soon as they leave. We don't know. We'll have to see. This could include a lot of countries, though, that are problematic with people visiting and then taking advantage of the open system of the United States, and then again illegally immigrating under the guise of visiting. Again, what this will do is not end mass visiting, but it will end, it'll make it so there's a bar. You have to have a certain amount of money to basically visit the U.S. Pretty bold move. We'll see if it holds up, but they're doing that right now. All right, everyone, that said, questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, leave it in the chat, and let's jump into a discussion. First question, TZ Burton. You're saying California Court of Appeals just ruled that the University of California must hire illegal aliens. Right. So what the California Court of Appeals just ruled is that universities, that they're not forbidden from hiring illegal aliens. That was kind of the basis of it. Basically, they're saying that discrimination based on legal status is discrimination according to California law. They're not saying universities have to hire illegal aliens, but they're saying they cannot discriminate based on that. Meaning, if you get 20 applicants and 5 of them are illegal aliens, you need to consider the illegal aliens on the same basis as the other 15. Now that brings up some concerns in my opinion because, well look, I mean, how do you have illegal aliens working for a university that requires tax filings, that requires, I don't know, do they require social security numbers? I think they might. That oftentimes give benefits. Remember, a lot of businesses provide benefits, healthcare, other programs. How does that all work? And the other question is, do they actually have to check whether they're illegal immigrants or not? Because that requires documentation. If you have documentation, then they could just be deported. A lot of questions here that I think will need to be answered. On the other point with this, though, this brings up a bigger issue in the country. Okay, let's go way back. The Bush administration, right before Obama was voted into office. Does anybody remember what George Bush did right before Obama? Do you remember the George Bush law on illegal immigration that had illegal immigrants protesting on the street? Does anybody remember that, what it did? Under George Bush, shortly before he left office, let's see here. Anybody remember? I remember when flying was luxurious, class of people, bigger issue in the country, bring back trains. You weren't even talking about this. All right, fine. Okay, what did George Bush do? George Bush made it a felony to hire illegal immigrants. He made it so that it was a crime. You were not allowed to hire illegal immigrants. If you were an employer, you hired them, you committed a crime. And he made it so that, I believe it was a felony if they entered the country more than once, I think it was. So he made it so they cannot work here. He made it so they commit crimes when they work here, and he made it so it's a major crime if they try to enter the country after being deported. I've heard a lot of people say this. You're not going to get rid of illegal immigration until you make it illegal to hire illegal immigrants. And that was the law in the United States in the past. They overturned it, but it used to be you would face prosecution if you were hiring illegal immigrants. A lot of people have said that as long as the incentive is there, people will come. And what is the incentive for illegal immigrants coming to the United States? Well, work, right? A lot of them want to come here and work. Until recently, it was also free handouts, temporary protection status, free housing, free food. A lot of that is like newer stuff. That's like, mostly Biden era type programs where they were offered essentially just a free welfare stay. They could live off the backs of Americans. And a lot of them were just absolute freeloaders coming across. And I mean, they would tell you it if you talked to them. They just say, look, I want to come have the government take care of me. Like they wouldn't even deny it, some of them. So the past 4 or 5 years, we got a lot of people who are coming here believing they were entitled to be taken care of by Americans. If you go back further, though, it was mostly people looking for work. And if you eliminate the incentive of people coming here looking for work, hey, that's a crime. People cannot hire you. They can be punished for it if they hire you. You're going to end it real quick. I don't know why the Trump administration is not doing that because, right now what's happening with Trump, they're paying people $1,000 and giving them a free airplane ticket if they self-deport. They're paying $17,000 for every person they arrest and deport. It's costing taxpayers a crazy amount of money. Imagine if they said, okay, look, if we catch you, the same punishments are in place. But instead of saying, hey, we'll pay you to leave, they just say, okay, if you hire them, it's now illegal. What'll happen then is every single illegal immigrant has two choices. Hide from the police and don't make a living. It means that your livelihood is taken away. It means that you basically have no way to live here. Or self-deport, right? And that would be very strong. The reason I believe they're not doing that is because I personally believe they need some illegal immigrants. This is or they believe they do, because this is what Trump is even saying publicly. He keeps flip-flopping on whether he's going to let people stay for, they're talking about hotel workers and farm workers, also to an extent restaurant workers, because, surprise, a lot of illegal immigrants do work in those industries, and people from those industries have said that, it's going to be hard for us to hire people and keep those industries running if we don't have a ton of illegal immigrants. Recent announcement from the Trump side is they're actually saying that they're going to even allow some people who were deported to come back as farm workers, suggesting that they're maybe not as serious about this as they said they were. What do I believe is going to happen? This is what I think is going to happen. How do you solve that? Well, you tell people, hey, do you all want to come and work? Let's put it this way. If tomorrow the Trump administration came out and said, hey, we're going to give work visas to anybody who wants to work in the farming industry in the United States, what do you think would happen? Do you think people would be like, no, I'm mad that you deported my cousin? Or do you think they'd be like, I want to go? What do you think is going to happen? I would say, obviously, a lot of people would do this and say, I want to go. They would be able to fill those positions almost instantly. And so if they wanted to have a program to deport them and then have a rapid legal migration program to replace the people who were deported, I believe they could do it within a week. I would say within a week, not even exaggerating, they could refill those positions. Maybe they don't want to have that lull, I don't know, but I think this could be solved very quickly. And again, the difference is not between, do you hate migrants? The difference is between illegal immigration and legal immigration. And it does seem to be the case. They want to have a lot of legal foreign workers still in positions in some of these jobs. So we'll see. California might be playing with fire on this front because it's a very delicate ground if they do make it so it's illegal to hire illegal immigrants again. That is going to be the line that's going to blow up the whole system for them. Denise B., you're saying, with the need for rare earth minerals, for example, magnets, cutting diamonds, etc., is there a possibility of getting some of those via recycling, the way China is recycling high-end NVIDIA chips by repairing old chips? From what I understand, the amount you would need would not be easily obtainable through recycling. Already, okay, a lot of people do it. You're not supposed to throw electronics in the trash when you get rid of them. Electronics do have a lot of rare materials in them. They have gold in them. They have minor components. The problem you have with recycling of old electronic equipment, though, is you need to use the process of extracting those materials and isolating those materials. It's debatably not worth it. It's so much work that it's almost not worth it. I'd say at the very least, it's not financially worth it. And so, not to mention, you would need a large ongoing supply of materials in order to fill the need of the amount of replacement products you would need. So for example, if you wanted to have a cell phone company and your cell phone company was dependent on extracting the rare earth materials from discarded cell phones and computers, the scale of operation you would need to extract that, the amount of chemicals you would need to chemically extract those materials, the rare earth minerals from that, it would not be financially worth it. And I also don't believe you would even have the supply of discarded electronics to run that. It would be a lot cheaper just to look for different sources and build up mining operations. The United States does have rare earth minerals. What is not often acknowledged is that rare earth minerals are not actually rare. They're actually kind of common. The problem is more so in the extraction process and the processing, which is very environmentally damaging, and it's also not really cost effective. China does it because they don't care about the environment. The CCP just do like scorched earth stuff, and I mean their water is like just totally toxic from this stuff. It's horrible what they did to the environment in China, and you know it would be hard for us to do it here. They are talking about it in some areas. Congo, I don't know if this is part of the deal. Trump, of course, negotiated a peace deal between Congo and one of their neighbors. And part of that deal, what was offered by Congo was a massive rare earth mineral mining operation. There's also the possibility the United States is going to build other mining operations. Remember what country is involved with that? Australia. Australia is looking to the Middle East. They're looking to, far Eastern European countries. They're looking at Asian countries, Australia. In terms of GDP products and global industries, they have some of the best mining operations of any country in the world. They're very good at that, especially by first world standards. And so them building up rare earth mineral mining operations could be very big. My point is, I do think that there are better ways for them to do it that would be more cost effective and more efficient. It's just the big problem they have with replacing China as the source for that, it's going to take a few years to build up those operations. James, you're asking, do I know what happens to your iPhone when you take it back for the next generation upgrade? Yeah. Does anybody do that? Where like every year you can bring your old phone in and exchange it for the new one and you pay like a bit of the difference? What do they do with that? In my understanding, they use it for the refurbished products. And you might say, well, what does somebody want to do with like an iPhone 5 or an iPhone 7 or my old MacBook? Well, they refurbish it and they resell it. And you might say, well, people in America might not want it, but people in Latin America might. People in Africa might. So they can sell those, and there's still a good market for the older devices. Look, I'm not the kind of guy who cares so much about having the latest iPhone. I'll buy an older phone. If you want to know, I actually have an Android because I don't really care about brand. I paid $200 for a device just as strong as a current year iPhone, with the exception of the camera. And so for me, it's like, what do I want to pay $200 or $1,000 for basically the same device? I'll pay $200. Right? I don't care about brand name. I know some people like the brand. I can say though, switching from app, because I used to have an iPhone, switching from iPhone to Android, they don't make it easy. The biggest problem you have is that a lot of messages are sent through iMessage. And what'll happen when you first switch is that you don't get a lot of your messages because they're being sent through iMessage. They make you jump through a few loopholes where you have to unregister yourself with iMessage if you want to get your messages on the same phone number. They really make it hard to switch, Apple. They make it really hard to switch. Maybe because you get other options. Anyways, I won't go too far into devices. I could make some good arguments for Android, including the fact there are alternative app markets that have some of the best apps out there, and they don't have subscriptions. You can download something for free and use it forever, and they're better than anything on the App Store. So I think people get ripped off by these subscription things personally. Lucy Park, you're saying they busted a Chinese birth baby ring in OC, California. Is that Orange County? You say birth tourism. Did they bust one recently? I didn't see recently. They have busted them before. So basically, I do know some of the older cases, and this is a business. They'll have a fancy like spa. Come and stay at our luxury spa for pregnant women. We'll take care of you. We'll pamper you. And you go there and it's a birth facility. They set this up as a tourism thing. Like imagine you're going to Hawaii and you want to go to like the Disney resort. Instead of going to Hawaii for the Disney resort, you're going to California for the give birth to your soon-to-be American citizen resort. And they basically have a facility set up for pregnant women. Now look, if you're living in another country and you want to give birth in the United States, you don't have to do that. You can actually just go stay at an actual resort. The difference with these birth tourism ones is they're set up specifically for giving birth, meaning they're going to have additional things like that. Actually, really interesting thing to know, and I only know this because I have a lot of Chinese friends, and Asians in general. Koreans I know do the same thing. The way that they have treatments for women when they're pregnant and after they give birth is so good. They actually have whole kits you can buy to handle some of the health impacts women face after having a child. Any woman who's had a child, any father who's been with a woman who's had a child knows that they often go through like depression afterwards. They have mineral deficiencies afterwards. It actually impacts your teeth sometimes. It impacts your hair. In Asian countries, they have all kinds of products designed specifically to supplement all of that. I don't know why we don't have it common in the US. They're really good with it, actually. On that point, if any woman out there is pregnant and you want to look into it, just do a search. There's really cool stuff out there. They have like packages you can buy, and they'll even deliver it to you. It's like vitamin supplements, it's care stuff, it's all kinds of stuff that will help alleviate some of the deficiencies you have after having a child. And so, when it comes to these birth facilities, the reason they're doing this instead of just going to like a normal resort is because they have a lot of care packages in place specifically for pregnant women and for women after they give birth. But yeah, these things were busted because, if you're coming here with the intent of like defrauding the American citizenship program, that's not cool. You know what I mean? So there were people getting arrested for that. Jeremy Barker, you're saying, well, China has proven they're good at building something out of nothing. Look at the islands they built in the South China Sea. Yeah, they're really good at like stealing territory, right? The funny thing with that? Okay, just to emphasize how some of the defense analysis guys, in my opinion, don't really understand China. They've gotten a lot better. The CCP, when the CCP is going to do something crazy, oftentimes its generals come out and say, we're going to do something crazy. They actually announce it. And the problem we have with a lot of our defense guys is they say, well, they don't mean that. They just say things. They just say things like this. They say things like it, then they actually do it, okay? Before the CCP went into the South China Sea and started building artificial islands, one of his generals came out and said, we're going to go there and we're going to build islands and then use them to build military bases on so we can have basing operations to support our Navy for maritime defense to defend our fishing ships. The narrative they used for it was they wanted to have military programs to support, to do search and rescue for like airplanes or lost ships, right? That was the basis they used for it. I remember the time I wrote about it and I had like other defense experts criticize me for it because they're like, you can't take these people seriously. I'm like, look, every time they say they're going to do something like this, they do it. How do you not put two and two together? How do you not look at like patterns and logically conclude that the pattern might continue? Like, how do you people get jobs? So some of them, I don't know where their heads are at, but it is a big problem that unfortunately a lot of them don't seem to really understand the Chinese Communist Party. It's getting a bit better, but a lot of people in the defense industry, they don't really understand the CCP very well. There are some fantastic experts out there, don't get me wrong. There are some very good ones. But there are some who just, I don't know if they're getting paid off or they're eating out of the CCP's hand or what, but their analysis on this stuff is terrible. because again, they don't seem to grasp how the CCP works or how they operate. Anyways, everyone, I'm going to be on the road again. I will still do the episode tomorrow. I need to travel for some interviews and some reporting. I mentioned before, on Fridays now, I'm using my day to work on in-depth features and investigations. I'm traveling tomorrow for some, or today actually, for some new investigations and for an upcoming feature. Join me tomorrow, though, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time from my hotel room, where we will continue our discussions. Folks, that said, I don't know, let me know in the chat. Do you think, I'm curious, do you think Donald Trump should make it illegal to hire illegal immigrants? Do you think that will destroy the restaurant industry? Do you think that will basically upend the entire construction industry? Do you think we're going to be paying $20 for an avocado? Who's going to pick the cotton? You tell me in the chat, because these are concerns being raised by people who defend it. Let me know what you think. Should he do that? Because, you know, jokes aside, it would have a domino effect. And the question is, would we be willing to endure that and hope to fill those jobs in time to not collapse those industries? It would have a very harmful effect on some of the businesses. Is it worth it? You let me know in the chat what you think. That said, folks, join me again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you've not yet, please do not forget to like this video. Just click the like button. It really does help us a lot on the algorithm. And that said, again, I'll see you tomorrow. In the meantime, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.